Well, hello everybody and welcome back to Normandy with me, Patrick Hillier of welovenormandy.com. My company, for you don't know me, provides tours, accommodation and transport and virtual guided tours of Normandy. And we're here today on Utah Beach. Now, I'm a D-Day guide, a member of the Normandy Battlefield Tour Guides Association, and I've been giving these virtual tours since June of last year. And we're here on Utah Beach, you can see behind me. Currently, Bronwyn, as you quite rightly said, currently a lot nicer than it was last Saturday on Omaha Beach, when we had, I think, 8 degrees centigrade, 40-something degrees Fahrenheit, wind, rain and hailstones. And I'm hopeful that today we're going to, this beautiful sunshine and dry weather is going to stay with us. I'm sure it will, certainly for the next 50 minutes or so. If you've registered as a member, then you can send a members chat message or question using the members chat button at the bottom right hand side of the screen. Just select Patrick Hillier, my name, from the top of the list, and that message will go to nobody else but me and my wingman Brendan back at We Love Normandy HQ. Now, if you can't see the chat, the message button, that's probably because you have subscribed as a non-public. You've ticked the box that said you did not want a public profile. That's fine, but if you want to talk to me or the other people, you have to go public. So click on it's dead easy. Click on your profile at the top right-hand side of the video panel and select Make Profile Public. Then you can talk to us all. It's not public in that the whole world's watching. It's just this group of, at the moment, 40 or 50 people who are attending the tour. And as I say, when you send me a message, it just goes to me. The other people don't see it. Okay, when you've changed your profile, you might have to refresh your browser. Okay, well, after the tour, we'll be doing the usual Zoom platoon, a debrief and open forum for all subscriber members. So just click, if you're a subscriber, click on the members area and then the subscribers page option from the members area, and you'll see all the Zoom details, the Zoom invitation there, and we'll be hosting that Zoom platoon meeting at about 5 p.m. Paris time. Now let me just give you a few simple instructions. This is the boring stuff, I'm sorry, but we'll get to the tour really quickly. You can view the video in full screen mode by tapping the icon in the lower right hand corner. You can pause the video or even rewind it if you want by using the slider at the bottom of the video panel. You can turn the sound on and off, of course. Make sure you've got your sound turned on. But if you haven't, you won't be able to hear me saying that. So that was a bit stupid. Anyway, you can type a comment, as I've said, using the members chat. You need to sign in to do that. And have a look at the archive photographs at the bottom of the video panel. Scroll down and take a look at the gallery. There's archive photographs, infographics, maps, and I'll be referring to those media throughout the tour today. There's some really good stuff there. If you're in full screen mode, you won't be able to use the chat or see the gallery. You have to come out of full screen mode to chat or to see the gallery. I hope that makes sense. Now, a virtual tour is no substitute for the real thing, but there are one or two advantages. Let me see if I can just show you there. No crowds. And we have no crowds here today, and we have fantastic weather. Today we're on Utah Beach. We will walk the beach where we are now and the dunes, which you'll see behind me here. At beach exit number 2 off Utah Beach between the two sectors of Uncle Red and Terre Green. Now, along the way we'll have a chat about the background to D-Day and the military hardware and relics that you can see here on Utah Beach. But we're especially here to discover Utah Beach and learn the story about US 7 Corps on D-Day. We'll visit the monuments dedicated to the US infantry and the engineers who disembarked here at H-hour at 6:30 on D-Day. And we'll learn how, after a slightly dodgy start, the troops of the 4th Infantry Division achieved one of D-Day's most successful missions. We'll find out about people like Brigadier General Teddy Roosevelt, Colonel Eugene Cafe, who renamed all the streets here after the names of the fallen soldiers from his unit. We'll learn about Arthur Yanker, the 23-year-old German lieutenant who commanded his troops here at Strong Point 5. and all that kind of stuff. Let me show you something before we start walking. Where am I now? I'm just sitting on this huge lump of concrete in the dunes here. This is one of the fixed position gun emplacements of Strong Point 5, which we're going to discover today. One of many in the Strong Point complex. And the reason you can't see the embrasure or the opening of the gun is because it's actually been buried by the sands. Over the 76 years, you can see there how the sands have risen and completely covered up the entrance and indeed the exit at the back of the bunker in the dunes. Okay, well, I'll pan around here and give you this fantastic view of the beach. And we'll start off with a walk on the beach itself. We'll go up to the surf before we go and have a look at the Strong Point and see some of the vehicles and relics and remains of D-Day. So this is Utah Beach. It's a stretch of sandy coastline on the west end or the right flank of the Allied invasion. It runs for roughly 12 miles from the estuary of the Douve and Tote rivers, which you can't really see the estuary from here, but right on the far distance of this shot you have the estuary of two rivers that come together and empty into the English Channel. Not a suitable place for an Allied landing, so that really demarked the southern end or the left end of the Utah beach sector. 12 miles from there to just above the town of Kineville in the north, and if I swing around to the north, you can see round past that headland and on another 11-12 miles you have the Utah sector. There are some really good maps in the gallery below the video panel. Have a look at those. Of the 156,000 servicemen who took part in Operation Overlord, 23,000 of them arrived here. And just a 1 mile sector of the beach, Uncle Red and Tear Green, where we are now. In fact, we're on Uncle Red at the moment, and Tear Green is where the camera is pointing. But the exit to the beach, exit number 2, is the demarcation line between the two sectors. Now, the primary objective of General Collins' 7 Corps was to take the deep water seaport of Cherbourg, which is 25 miles north of here. Again, on the horizon there, you might be able to see that headland in the very, very far distance, that hazy headland there. Around that headland and a bit further still is the deep water seaport of Cherbourg, which was the ultimate objective of all the troops who landed, of 7 Corps who landed here on Utah Beach, supported by the airborne forces. And Eisenhower, the Supreme Commander, and Field Marshal Montgomery added Utah Beach to the plan. Utah Beach wasn't in the original plan for the D-Day landings, and they added it with this specific objective to capture that vital seaport of Cherbourg. In addition, 7 Corps were to link up with US 5 Corps over in the Omaha sector, 12 miles to the east. I'll pan around. Again, I don't know how clear this is, but a thin strip of land on the horizon there is Grand Commazy, just to the west of Omaha Beach and Omaha sector. Around that headland and a few miles more, that you're on the Omaha sector. 12 miles away. Now, to achieve these aims, the 4th Infantry had to, let me put you on selfie mode a second. The 4th Infantry had to assault the beach. They had to subdue the enemy defenders. They had to link up with the airborne forces who'd arrived during the night by parachute and glider. They had to establish a front line behind the beachhead and then assist in cutting off the Cherbourg Peninsula to stop German counterattacks coming from the south. Now, the plan for the beach invasion was to launch a massive aerial and naval bombardment of the German defences on the beach here prior to the landings. Then the amphibious tanks, the DD tanks, there are pictures of these in the gallery. They would effectively swim ashore from the ships in the sea and destroy what remained of the enemy fixed positions. Then the combat engineers and the Navy underwater demolition crews would come in and demolish the beach obstacles to allow the troops to get off the landing craft and up the beach. And then finally the troops would move forward, and on foot or in motor-powered vehicles they'd make their way off the beach via 4 exits. This is exit number 2 where we are right now. Behind me you can see the museum. Now these exits led to 4 causeways that were the only way through the swampy, flooded areas of the low-lying land behind Utah Beach. Those areas have been deliberately flooded by the Germans under Rommel's orders, and as I say, there are only 4 ways across those flooded areas on these causeways. You can see them on the map, highlighted in yellow. Okay, let me swing back round to the front camera. Now we're on our way to see the first of what I call an echo of the past, a bit of material, a bit of a reminder of what was happening here 77 years ago, often overlooked. And we're just coming up to that now. Now, after an inauspicious start for the 4th Infantry Division, who arrived here on the morning of D-Day, 6:30, the first wave of troops landed over a mile south of their destination. They landed right here, but their intended destination was about a mile north up the beach in the middle of the shot there. The amphibious tanks, the DD tanks, arrived late, and the infantry in their landing craft overtook the tanks, the DD tanks, and arrived before them. But in spite of all that, the 4th Infantry Division, supported by the Navy, the Air Force, the airborne units and the Coast Guard, achieved the D-Day objectives with relatively few casualties. If you joined us last Saturday for the Omaha Beach tour, we talked about how catastrophic the morning of D-Day had been for 5 Corps and for the 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions landing on Utah Beach. Most people are familiar with the story that Omaha Beach was a terrible battle. Well, here at Utah Beach it was a huge success and relatively few casualties. We'll talk about the casualties later. I don't want to say there were no casualties. Of course there were, but compared to what happened on Omaha Beach and indeed some of the 5 landings beaches, relatively few casualties. Now, here we are at what I was telling you about earlier. This is the Dune, by the way. This place here was known by the local people on the maps as La Grande Dune, which in French means the Big Dune. As you can see, I don't know if you can get a sense of the scale, but it's really only 15 to 20 feet high at the very highest. And the Germans called their defences here Widerstandsnest 5. The word Widerstandsnest means resistance nest in English, and we tend to call it we tend to use the word strong points. And there were 25 strong points like this one, and we'll see a lot more of the bunkers shortly along those 12 miles of sandy coastline. You can see them on the map in the gallery. Now, this brings us to one of the things that I refer to as echoes of the past, something that I'm sure thousands of visitors to the beach here just walk past without a second glance. But here are the remains of the anti-tank wall, the German anti-tank wall or sea wall, and you can see the troops digging in behind this concrete structure in the gallery. I really suggest you have a look at that. You can see the members of 4th Infantry Division digging in behind the anti-tank wall, and you can see what the effects of 77 years of tides and storms have done to that structure, because not much of it remains, but it is still here, and as I say, most people don't even give it a second glance. Okay. Now, Strong Point 5, where we are, was manned by about 70 German troops, and it was commanded by Lieutenant Arthur Janker. Now, he was a veteran of the Russian front, and he'd received the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross for bravery. But in 1944, he was only 23 years old, and you can see a picture of him in the gallery wearing his medal around his neck. Now, the coast of England, let me swing back through to the front camera. The coast of England is about 100 miles north of us here, right across the English Channel there. And as you can see today, there's almost no, well, in fact, no, there's no traffic at all on the channel. But on the 6th of June 1944, this narrow channel was filled with Allied vessels of all shapes and sizes. Battleships like the USS Nevada, a veteran of Pearl Harbor, down to the little Higgins boats, and we'll see one of the Higgins boats shortly. Higgins boats that brought the soldiers to shore. The Armada was the largest in history. It consisted of around 7,000 craft. And that was the sight coming across the channel here that greeted young Arthur Janker on the morning of the 6th of June, when he looked through his scissor telescopes in a bunker somewhere and saw that huge armada of thousands of ships on the channel. Next, the sheer force of the aerial bombardment and Navy shelling all but destroyed his strong point. And we're going to go to his strong point now. Brendan, do we have any questions at this stage? Okay. So if you do want to send in a question or a comment, oh, by the way, have a look at these horses here. Everything okay? Okay, Brendan? We get a lot of horses here, and they do a lot of training on the beach. Looks like these people are just having a nice time, but they do a lot of trotter training on the beach. Sorry, Brandon, what was that? Okay. It sounds like I've lost my winged man, but I'm... Oh, he's back with me. Thank you very much indeed, Brendan. So as I was saying, do send in a question or a comment if you like. Thank you, Brendan. So as I was saying, the little went well for the American invasion force. Initially, there was a mix-up of landing craft due to the bad weather and the poor visibility, and especially the tidal currents. I think the DD tanks that we were talking about, 32 of them were launched. Let's have a look at these horses. 32 of them were launched at 3 kilometers from the beach, and all of them made it except 4, which were destroyed by a sea mine. But as I say, the troops arrived before the tanks. Nonetheless, after that, things started to go a lot better for the 4th Infantry. Now, E Company of the 8th Infantry Regiment was the first to arrive on a rising tide, about 200 yards from the top of the beach, and they were led by Teddy Roosevelt Jr. We're going to go up through beach exit number 2 now. Teddy Roosevelt Jr., the son of the former president. And when he realised that they were in the wrong place, 2,000 yards off their mark, he consulted with his regimental commanders and decided to redirect the subsequent waves to this spot. Why? Because here at Strong Point 5 almost all the German firepower had been destroyed. He contacted his commander on the USS Bayfield, the command ship, and said famously, let me swing around here, and said famously, we're going to start the war from here. And that was right in this very, very spot, at this little gap in the dunes, beach exit number 2. However, Colonel James Van Fleet, who was the commander of the 8th Regiment, refutes that legend in his memoirs. He said it, but somebody said it anyway. We're going to start the war from here. So, ironically, Van Fleet had wanted to land right here in this spot, rather than 2,000 yards northwest. But the Navy had insisted on landing here, on landing further up the coast, because the seawater there was deeper. But that era of navigation was good luck for 7 Corps, because, as I said, at Strong Point, where they were supposed to land was at Strong Point 9, and there the enemy guns were all intact and firing. By the way, you might be wondering why a 56-year-old former president's son was commanding his troops on the front line on D-Day. Well, he was the assistant divisional commander of the 4th Infantry Division, and he was determined to go with his men. His request to join the troops in the first wave was initially rejected by General Barton, and so he wrote Barton a letter which his commander could not refuse. I'll read you that. He concluded the letter, "I believe that I can contribute materially on all of the above by going in with the assault companies. Furthermore, I personally know both officers and men of these advanced units and believe that it will steady them to know that I am with them." Well, as we mentioned earlier, Roosevelt succumbed to, poor health, and he died 5 weeks later of a heart attack during active duty. He received posthumously the Medal of Honor for his actions on D-Day, and again I'll read the citation. He repeatedly led groups from the beach over the seawall and established them inland. Under his seasoned, precise, calm and unfaltering leadership, assault troops reduced beach strongpoints and rapidly moved inland with minimum casualties. He thus contributed substantially to the successful establishment of the beachhead in France. And that was right here, exit number 2, La Grande Dune, Strong Point 5. Now, on the beach we do not wear face masks, but now that I've come off the beach, I will put mine on. I like to follow the rules. While I'm slipping on my mask, I'll give you this fabulous view from what it's like up here on the top of the dunes. By the way, this live stream page today is public, so you can share this on social media if you like to your friends, or if you know somebody you think might want to tune in and watch this right now. All you need to do is copy and paste the web address, which is welovenormandy.com/live-stream. You'll see that in your web browser. Copy and paste that into Facebook or whatever social media you use, and somebody will be able to click on that and watch this live stream for the next half an hour, 40 minutes. And again, if you've got any questions or comments, click on the members chat button. Let me just adjust my mask. You can probably still hear me, I hope, with the mask on. Very few people here today, just a few people enjoying a walk or a cycle ride. Now, we were discussing the Navy right now, and this brings us to the first of several monuments that we'll see today, the US Navy Monument. Which is right here. Let me get behind the sun so you get a better look at it. The Navy flotilla that brought the troops ashore here at Utah was called Assault Force U for Utah. It's quite simple. Each of the 5 D-Day beaches, and you can see them on the gallery, there's a map of the 5 D-Day beaches. Each of the 5 D-Day beaches had its own Navy assault force, that's shown on the map too. And in total 7,000 vessels participated in the operation. It was codenamed Operation Neptune, I forgot to mention that before. Now the monuments that commemorate the Army's role in D-Day began to appear from the late 1940s. But the poor old Navy had to wait until 2008 when this huge black marble sculpture by Stephen Spears was unveiled. The names of all the American ships that participated are inscribed on the base. Je vous en prie, madame. I'll show you a few of the perhaps more famous ones. Here you can see the 3 US battleships involved. The Arkansas, the Nevada, which we mentioned just now, and the Texas. There are so many battleships, destroyers, cruisers and landing ships that there's simply no room on the base there for the thousands of other landing craft and commercial vessels that took part. We see the destroyers. And here you see the many, many LSTs, or landing ship tank. There's over 130 of them. See if I can get my picture out of the way. And these ships are 400 feet in length. And remember, this monument is dedicated to the US Navy. The navies of other Allied countries provided the bulk of the sea traffic on D-Day. And they included Great Britain, France, Denmark, Norway, Poland. So this is only a fraction of that invasion force of 7,000 ships. Here we can see the dedication. A little bit in the shade, but hopefully you'll be able to read that. To the officers and sailors of the United States Navy, whose competence, courage and sacrifice enabled Operation Overlord. Now from up here you get a fabulous view of the site. Let me show you that. There's the museum. When you're able to come to Normandy, you must go to visit this particular museum. I always point that out. This one and the Airborne Museum at St. Mary-Église are my 2 favourites. And from up here you get this fabulous view of the site. There's beach exit number 2 between the museum and us, leading off the beach to the interior. There's the Higgins Boat, and we'll get a much closer look at that later. And there, sadly closed at the moment because of the COVID restrictions, is the Roosevelt Cafe. My favourite lunchtime place for a snack and a refreshment. Now in the introduction we were talking about the role of the combat engineers and the Navy construction battalions. They had to remove the beach obstacles. Well, both of those units have monuments here, and this one here is the most recent. I saw them. I saw the the guys putting this monument up back in 2019. And this one's dedicated to the underwater demolition frogmen called the Seabees, a special operations unit that later became the US Navy SEALs. Now, I've got a question for you. Can the keen-eyed amongst you spot the mistake on the inscription? Let me zoom in a little bit closer to give you a clue. There you go. Anybody spot the spelling mistake on the inscription? Send me a message. We'll give you a shout out if you get the answer right. You want one more close-up look? There we go. Okay. Okay. Well, my mask looks a bit crooked though. Well, we're going to go from here to have a look at the Engineer Special Brigade Monument. We're walking now along the top of the dunes, if you like, parallel with the beach. The beach is down there to my right, and behind me you can see there the low-lying land behind the dunes. And up here, as well as the monument, there's one of the few remaining artillery installations, a 50mm tank gun. It has an elevated position up here on the dunes, and so from here we might just be able to make out one or two things. Before we go and see the gun, we might just be able to make out one or two things on the sea. Okay, now this live streaming that I'm using is HD video. I hope the quality is good enough for you to see these very small dark patches on the horizon. But without a good telephoto lens, they do just look like dark patches. However, they are the remains of the artificial Gooseberry Harbour. At low tide, you can see some of the elements of the artificial harbour. You can actually walk up to them and onto them. And if you have a look on the gallery, you'll see one of the pontoons of the artificial Gooseberry Harbour with troops arriving, and some video footage that I took of it last September. But this is as close as we're going to get to it today in terms of the live. Now, some viewers, let me swing around here. It's me again. Now, some of you, I'm sure, know that near the British beach Gold and on the US beach Omaha, the engineers built artificial harbours called mulberries. Most famously, the Mulberry Bee in the British sector, because so much of it still remains. Let me just see. Brendan, are you trying to contact me? Three people have answered the spelling mistake question. Oh, fantastic! Did they get it right? John, Gary, Anne-Marie, you go to the top of the class because you spotted the, I'd like to say deliberate spelling mistake. It's certainly not a deliberate spelling mistake. On the Seabees monument, they spelt department the French way with an extra E, département. You couldn't make it up, but well done. Well done for spotting that. Okay, so we were just talking about the Mulberry Harbour near Gold Beach at Arromanches, which most people know because so much of it remains to this day that you can see it. But fewer people realise that on each of the 5 beaches there was also another type of breakwater known as a gooseberry. At Utah Beach, the Gooseberry Harbour consisted of piers called whales, suspended by floating concrete pontoons called beetles, and you can see one or two of those things back on the beach itself. And if you tune in on Wednesday for the Wednesday webinar, we'll have a look at a couple of those. I'll just get out of the way here so that these people come past. The gooseberries were made primarily from decommissioned cargo ships that were deliberately sunk, and these were known as corn cobs. And the whole thing just created an artificial breakwater, made it safer for ships to lay up at anchor, and allowed them to attach those pontoons to the harbour and bring in troops, equipment, supplies, and vehicles. So, here we are. I promised you a gun, and here we are. It's a couple of weeks since I've been here, and the scaffolding which you see in place is definitely temporary. I'm not sure what they're doing. Perhaps they're doing some work on the gun itself. By the way, the artificial harbour, it was completed a week or so after D-Day, and over 800,000 troops came ashore. 200,000 vehicles and 750,000 tons of equipment and supplies. Which beggars belief, really. Now have a look in the gallery. You'll see this gun back in 1945. The sentry that you see standing guard is actually an American soldier. This was after the invasion. And you can see a gun like this, a 50mm, being manned by 2 German gunners as well. It's called a KWK, a Kampfwagenkanon. It's a tank gun, basically. And normally, in the summertime, we have other flags here. You can see the flagpoles. And the reason for the flags and the lawns is that this is also the site of the 1st Engineers Special Brigade Monument, which we'll go and have a look at now. And here it is. It's the very first commemorative monument in the D-Day area, the D-Day landings area. Inaugurated on the anniversary of D-Day 1945. So 1 year after the invasion, they unveiled this this splendid little monument on the top of the 50mm bunker. Again, you can see a black and white picture of the monument itself back in 1945 when it was unveiled. All the units of the 1st Engineers Special Brigade are mentioned on the monument itself. And the 1st ESB was commanded by General Eugene Cafe, Colonel Cafe at the time. He was one of the first officers to come ashore, and all of his men are commemorated here. Special engineers were responsible for getting the troops and equipment off the shore and into the inland. And they were also among the first troops to break through the enemy line here on Utah Beach and into the minefields beyond. There we go. Many of them were killed by anti-personnel mines, the German S mines, or bouncing Bettys as they were known, because they used to jump up out of the ground and before they exploded to cause maximum damage to the abdominal area. And I've read that 15,000 mines were removed by the engineers, so they did a great job here behind in the swampy areas and minefields of Utah Beach. Have a look at the archive picture of the monument back in 1945 with the French people taking part in the ceremony, and the little girls there wearing dresses made from the American flag and the French flag. And we're going to go down the stairs and have a look at the bunker below the gun. And before we go into the bunker itself, I want to show you a plaque. It's dedicated to an often overlooked unit that played 2 important roles in the operation. This one is to the US Coast Guard. Not a unit you would expect to be involved in the front line on one of the 20th century's most significant invasions, but there you are. Because of course the Coast Guard sailors piloted many of the landing craft and the rescue boats as well. And their rescue teams saved over 400 men from drowning on D-Day. And so this plaque commemorates the losses of the Coast Guard. So here we'll go into the first of the bunkers that we'll see today. This is beneath the 50mm gun. We'll wait for these people to finish reading the plaque. It's a general purpose shelter in close proximity to the gun, which is on top there, just behind the monument. Normally there's a small exhibition inside dedicated to Colonel Cafe, but unfortunately that's closed at the moment along with everything else. But there is a plaque that commemorates Cafe's unit, the 1st Engineers. In there is where the little museum is dedicated to Cafe. I'm sorry, but I can't show you that today. Yeah. And on the other side we'll see another plaque that commemorates lives lost during Exercise Tiger on Slapton Sands Beach in Devon in England. Now, on the night of the 27th of April 1944, during a rehearsal of Assault Force U's landing, nearly 1,000 infantry, navy and engineers were killed in 2 incidents. In the first, lives were lost due to friendly fire, and in the second, German E-boats managed to penetrate the fleet and torpedo a landing ship convoy. Now, it's a sobering thought and a sad irony that 10 times more men were killed on this exercise than died here on the beach on the real D-Day. Anyway, let's go and have a look at the 90th Infantry Monument. We've mentioned the 4th Infantry several times already this afternoon, the 4th being the major unit that arrived on Utah Beach on the 6th of June. But elements of the 90th Infantry Division arrived also on D-Day, the remainder of the division following in the days after. And this is their monument. The insignia, a capital T on a capital O, I think you can make that out now, is formed by the initials of Texas and Oklahoma, the 2 states from which the troops originated. And this gives rise to the 90th's nickname, which is the Tough Hombres. Now the 90th, after the Battle of Normandy, after D-Day, they went on to fight in the Battle of the Hedgehogs in July 1944, suffering some of the highest division-level casualties in World War II. They then took part in the closing of the Falaise Gap, the Ardennes Offensive, Battle of the Bulge, into Germany, and the liberation of concentration camps. I'm sorry if you get a mirror image of the text on the monument here, but I'll stand by the monument while we look at this. At the Flossenberg concentration camp, or work camp for dissidents, Jews and so-called criminals, there was a quarry, and from which this granite slab was cut and brought back here to Normandy by the 90th Infantry to create their memorial. Flossenberg, it's quite a pleasant sounding name, but the work camp there was sheer hell for the 30,000 people who were interned there from 1938 to 1945. And they were cutting stone for the Nazi road building and other construction programs. I think 30,000 was the number of people in the concentration camp who were killed during that period. I think there was nearly 100,000 people interned there. Okay, well, from here we go across to the monument which faces the 90th. See these kids playing in front of it. And this is what's known as quite simply, the American Monument. It's a red granite obelisk dedicated to all the men of 7 Corps, unveiled on the 40th anniversary of D-Day. Bronwyn, I believe a friend of yours was here for the 40th anniversary back in 1984. Unveiled by General Collins in the presence of 7 Allied heads of state, including Ronald Reagan, the President of France, François Mitterrand, and Her Majesty the Queen. The American Monument. Well, it looks like the weather gods are being very kind to us still today. We'll go across what looks like a car park or parking lot. It's not actually, it's like a parade ground. There's never any vehicles parked on here. We're going to have a look at the Roosevelt Restaurant. This area used for the processions and the parades to mark the anniversary of D-Day every year on the 6th of June. We'll have a quick look at the Roosevelt Restaurant, or the Roosevelt Cafe. And then we'll take a look at the Higgins Boat and the Sherman tank. So this is one of the places that I most look forward to visiting, because after a hard morning of guiding, I often book a table for my guests and me to have a quick lunch here at the Roosevelt Cafe. And not only is the food here pretty good, but the building itself is also a relic of D-Day. Let's go around to the side and you'll see what I mean in a second. It was a fishing shack before the war, and it's built next door to and on top of a German communications bunker. The patron, the owner of the bar, is our friend Daniel, and he's a keen collector of World War II memorabilia and artifacts, and he's got a great collection in the bar and the restaurant and in the underground secret bunker, which is here. And it still has the bunk beds and radios used by the American the US Navy personnel who commandeered the bunker after the invasion. It's a private collection, but Daniel lets us D-Day guides take our guests downstairs and see inside the bunker. Unfortunately, it's locked up today. I know where the key is, but the key is inside the restaurant, and the restaurant's locked as well. Tune in on Wednesday to the Wednesday webinar, and I have some footage of the bunker. Now you can see the camouflage. That's the original camouflage paint. It's been repainted over the decades, of course, but you have a look at the archive photograph of the troops sitting down there in front of the bunker, and you'll see it's changed not one bit, really, in 77 years. The camouflage was there to fool the Allied reconnaissance and fighter plane pilots into believing that this was a civilian residence, a house. And it might just have worked, you know, because look at it. It's still pretty much the same as it was back in 1944, if you have a look at that archive photograph. By the way, if you are a subscriber, you can view this footage afterwards. Well, let me swing around the camera to explain this to you. After the tour, the footage will be available on this live stream page for about 24 hours, and then it goes into the video archive. You can see that on the We Love Normandy website. You go to Members Area Video Archive, and there it stays. And you can view the video, you can view the gallery supporting photographs and infographics and maps, and you can download the video. That's available to to subscribers. And you can subscribe. You can subscribe for as little. Do you ever have one of those? Do you ever have one of those days? You can subscribe for as little as €3, and there's a free 30-day trial, so it doesn't actually cost you anything at all. So check that out if you want to watch this video again, or download it, or see the supporting gallery information as well. Okay. So, by the way, the owners of the bar, Danielle and Marie, lovely couple, they respectfully contacted the Roosevelt family to ask permission to name their bar the Roosevelt, because after all, Teddy Roosevelt Jr. died here in Normandy, and the friendly reply that they got from the Roosevelt Foundation hangs proudly on the wall of the bar. So when you come and visit Utah Beach, make sure you have lunch, or at least a cold drink at the Roosevelt Cafe. And when you do, make sure you tell me, and I can get you a good table, because it gets very, very busy. Okay, before we arrive at the Sherman tank and the Higgins boat, do you have any questions? Brendan, do we have any questions from our viewers? If you want to ask me a question, make a comment or an observation, just click on the members chat button. No more questions. Okay, no more questions, Your Honour. So, this brings us just across the courtyard from the cafe. Let me get you. We'll take a look at the monument to the 4th in a second. I just want to show you the museum. Fabulous Musée du Débarquement, the Landings Museum. Now, the French, quite understandably, don't tend to refer to D-Day as the invasion because they'd already been invaded back in 1940. So they refer to the operation as le débarquement, which literally means the disembarkation, which I think sounds rather nice. Anyway, standing guard outside the museum is this fantastic M4A1 Sherman tank. This medium tank was one of the stalwarts of World War II. Not as heavy or well armoured, or indeed as well armed as the Tiger tanks and the Panther tanks, but it was fast, manoeuvrable, transportable, easy to maintain, and the main thing was the Allies had lots of them. 50,000 of these Sherman tanks were produced, and they were adaptable. The British General, General Hobart, whose full name was Sir Percy Cleghorn Hobart, Hobo to his friends, he modified the design of the Sherman tanks, amongst other types of tank as well, to allow them to swim ashore. These duplex drive or DD tanks. This is not a DD tank. Don't misunderstand me. But they were used here successfully on Utah Beach, and there's a picture of them in the gallery. So have a look at those. It wasn't the case for the tanks. The same success for the tanks at Omaha Beach. If you joined us last Saturday, we talked a little bit about that. That's another story and another tour. But here on Utah Beach, the 70th Tank Battalion deployed 32 Sherman DD tanks on 8 landing craft. 1 landing craft hit a sea mine, but the others all successfully made it to the beach. 28 of the DD tanks made it to the beach, thanks in part to Colonel Van Fleet, who we talked about earlier, who insisted on launching the tanks at 3 kilometres from the beach, quite close into the beach, unlike at Omaha where they were launched much further out and most of them sadly sank. Next to the tank is the German checkpoint. Probably a good time to show you just do a quick panorama from the checkpoint. I'll just do a quick 360 panorama. We're right in the middle of the strong point here, and it's a complex network. There's a 90mm American artillery piece, but you'll see on the rise there as well. You may be able to make out some of the concrete structures on the rise there, and we're right in the middle of quite a big area, several acres. You can see the photo. You can see the map of the strong point in the gallery, and a bit of the wall there left. You see the concrete wall, and then the checkpoint. So this probably the entrance to the complex. German sentry standing guard here, allowing people in and out through a barrier, and you can see inscribed there in the concrete the date 30/10/42, 30th of October 1942, when these constructions were started. The main bulk of the Atlantic Wall, something we talk about more in the webinar, was produced from 1942 to 1944. The TOT organisation creating that 2,000-mile long defensive structure of bunkers all the way from the Arctic Circle down to the Bay of Biscay, and there's an example of one little piece of it and the date on which it was finished. So, oh, by the way, before we leave the Sherman tank, and before before the tank experts among you contact me and correct my mistake, it's not a mistake, but it's a mistake of the museums to have this tank here, because it's not a tank that would have participated in D-Day. It's what's known as an Easy 8. It was manufactured from 1945, so it's later than D-Day, and it has the upgraded 76mm tank and wider tracks. Now, I promised you a look at the Higgins boat, and we'll be going to have a look at that next. Then we'll come back to the monument. Okay, Brendan, how are we doing for time? I think we're coming up to 5 o'clock. I think we're going to overrun by about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so we'll make our way to the Higgins boat. But en route, we'll just take a quick look at these beach obstacles, the Czech Hedgehogs. We talked about them earlier, I think. You can see a picture of them in the gallery. These were installed under the orders of Marshal Rommel, Field Marshal Rommel, after he inspected the beaches here in early 1944. And there were literally tens of thousands of these things on the beach. And other devices, of course. And these are known as Czech Hedgehogs. Hedgehogs because of the shape, and Czech because they were first used in Czechoslovakia. Very simple design, but it's very effective in obstructing the landing craft when they arrived on to disembark, and even tearing holes in the hull of boats like the Higgins boat, which was actually a wooden craft. So we'll go on to the Higgins boat, but we'll go past the infantry sculpture. This is by the Nebraskan sculptor Fred Hopp. Each of the figures represents an infantryman from the 3 conflicts where the Higgins boat was employed. So you have the beginning World War II, second soldier the Korean War, and this guy the Vietnam War. Now Fred Hopp and the inventor of the Higgins boat, Andrew Jackson Higgins, were both from Columbus, Nebraska. That's the link. The boat, and we'll go aboard. The boat has a capacity of around 36 soldiers, or a small vehicle like a truck or a jeep. It can move on sea at up to 12 knots, and it was armed with 2 50 cal Browning machine guns on the stern here. These obviously just replica. The whole thing is a replica. It's all made of steel as well, whereas the real boats are made out of wood. But this is a monument to the Higgins boat, and therefore not an original one. If you're familiar with that terrifying photograph, or classic photograph, Into the Jaws of Death, taken from this kind of angle, the photographer, it's Robert Capa. It may have been Robert Capa. I might be wrong. Somebody will put me right, I'm sure. Must have been standing here by the side of the skipper when he took that photograph. I don't think I put that one in the gallery. I must put that one in the gallery before I put the footage in the archive. But I think you might be familiar. I'm hoping most of my viewers are familiar with that iconic photograph of the infantry leading the Higgins boat on the beach. At Omaha Beach, of course, that one is. Now, over 1,000 of these boats took part in Operation Neptune, and more than 20,000 were produced between 42 and 45 at the Higgins factory in New Orleans. Now, originally, Higgins had planned it for civilian use, transporting cargo in the swamps and bayous of Louisiana, but Higgins sold the idea to the US Army, not the Navy. The Navy were not interested in little boats like this, but the US Army bought it, and it was universally praised. Eisenhower, the Supreme Commander of Operations, stated that it had been crucial to the Allied victory in Europe and indeed North Africa. And he said that Andrew Jackson Higgins was the man who won the war for us. And here is the man himself, in bronze. There's his plaque. Okay. So, before we go and have a look at the 1st Infantry Monument, quick look at this this thing here. The lettering on this place name or this road name is now completely worn off. Well, we've had so many storms recently, had a very hard winter. This is Row Road. This is a road marker, and it normally says Row Road, named after Private Row, who lost his life here on the days following D-Day, 1944. And if you join in the webinar, I'll have another photograph of that, and talk about how Colonel Cafe's men were all the men of Colonel Cafe's unit, the special engineers who died, were commemorated by having roads and lanes named after them here in the commune of Sainte-Marie-du-Mont. Now, in total there's 59 roads here named after Cafe's men. It's a touching tribute made by the local population. In fact, the French continue to use place names from the war, like the code names of the beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, Sword. They're now still officially the name of those beaches. And every small town or village has its Eisenhower Square or its Joe Blow Road. They are not forgotten. So, the 4th Infantry, known as the nickname is the Ivy Division, play on words of the Roman numeral 4, IV. But apparently Ivy also symbolises tenacity and fidelity, which is the basis of the division's motto, steadfast and loyal. And as you can see, one of the 4th Infantry has left us sadly recently, and again you can see how much the local population remember, honour the troops who fought to liberate their town 77 years ago. Floral tributes there by the local mayor to Jack Port, who I believe passed away just a couple of days ago. And with the 4th Infantry Monument. Now, I've lowered my mask because I'm now the only person for about 2 miles here, so I'm on my own. Once ashore, the 4th Infantry linked up with the 82nd Airborne at Sainte-Marie-Église, and they participated in the capture of Cherbourg 3 weeks later, then the Battle of the Hedgerows through July, and the liberation of Paris on August the 25th. They crossed the Siegfried Line, participated in the Battle of the Hürtgen Forest, crossed the Rhine into Germany in March 1945. They were among the first Allied troops to liberate the concentration camps, and they liberated the first Nazi concentration camp at Dachau. The writer and journalist Ernest Hemingway was attached to the 4th Infantry, as was the author of Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger, where he was actually he served with the 12th Infantry Regiment. Well, the museum is right next door to this fabulous aircraft hangar. Let me flick around to the front and I'll very quickly tell you about that. There's a B-26 Marauder bomber housed in the aircraft hangar there, definitely worth seeing when you come to Normandy. You can see a photograph of David Dewhurst, who was the pilot of one of the bombers that successfully neutralised the German gun emplacements here on D-Day. His son, David Dewhurst Jr., who was the Deputy Governor of Texas, generously donated the funds that allowed them to build and improve the museum and build the aircraft hangar. So do come to Utah Beach when you come to Normandy. If you have any questions about tourism here, what to do, where to go, what to order for lunch at the Roosevelt Cafe, anything like that, just drop me a line. You can send me a chat message when we're doing these onlines, or you can contact me on email, patrick@welovenormandy.com. And what we're doing now is we're walking towards the Freedom Road marker through the low-lying area behind the beach that was flooded on D-Day. Up ahead, where you can see that white car going along a long straight road, that's one of the 4 causeways off the beach, marked in yellow. And we're going to take a look at marker number 00 of the Freedom Road. And here it is. It's one of 1,146 markers, one for every kilometre along the route taken by General Patton's Third Army from the invasion beaches to the town of Bastogne in Belgium. La Voie de la Liberté in French commemorates and symbolises the liberation of France by the Allied coalition. And you can't help but see these markers at the side of the road all over Normandy. But why is this one numbered 00? See where it says kilometres, KM00. Well, let me look through. Well, if you look it up on Wikipedia, you'll read 2 contradictory statements. The Liberty Road, and I quote, starts in Sainte-Marie-du-Mont, which is the name of the parish here where we are, at Utah Beach, and then it goes on to say that the first marker lies outside the town hall in Sainte-Marie-Église. Now, if you were with us 3 weeks ago, I think in Sainte-Marie-Église, we looked at the way marker number 0, which is the other 0 marker. So how can both of those statements be true? Well, you know, we've got marker number 00 here and marker number 0 in Sainte-Marie-Église. It doesn't really make any sense. Well, in a classic example of French compromise, both towns get to claim to be the place where the liberation began. Sainte-Marie-Église has marker number 0 and Sainte-Marie-du-Mont here has marker number 00. Go figure. Well, I am a proud resident of France. I love this country. It's been home for me and my family for nearly 20 years. But French bureaucracy never ceases to amaze me. Well, the starting point of a historic 500-mile road seems like an appropriate place to end today's tour. But before we wrap things up, if you have any questions, click the members chat button and send them in. I hope you enjoyed the tour. Let me give you some images of the museum while I do the wrap up. Hope you enjoyed the tour and hopefully learned something new. The attack on the enemy defences at Utah Beach was undoubtedly a success. By 8:30 a.m. the assault force had broken through the Atlantic Wall defences, and at just after 11 a.m. the tanks linked up with the paratroopers of the 101st Airborne at Poopville, and by early evening the 4th Infantry had made contact with the 82nd Airborne troops. You can see a photograph there of Teddy Roosevelt and General Barton on the beach at the end of the morning on D-Day, and you can also see a photograph of the German troops surrendering. Although not all the D-Day objectives were fully achieved, by nightfall 7 Corps had established a beachhead approximately 6 miles wide and 5 miles deep, and over 20,000 American troops were on French soil here in the Cotentin Peninsula, at a cost of only, and I use the term guardedly, only 197 casualties. The majority of the soldiers who died did so as a result of mines, both at sea and inland. Frontline leadership. Oh, Brendan's coming through with a question. Hi, Jerry. Oh, Gary. Absolutely. Thank you, Brendan, and thank you, Gary, for the question about the involvement of the French resistance. Absolutely, the French resistance were a key factor in the operation's success, mainly in destroying German lines of communication and transport. The Plan Vert, which as it was known, the Green Plan, was an operation by the French resistance to destroy railroads, railways, and lines of communication to hamper any German counter-offensives on the day of the operation. So yeah, absolutely. And of course the espionage activities of the resistance in getting the precise locations, for example, of places like this, Strong Point 5, through to the Allied planners. So we knew where the bunkers were, and that was all thanks to the French resistance. So thanks for the question, Gary. That's a fantastic question. Thank you. Brendan's just given me some very useful and interesting information. Somebody's written in to say that marker 00 is, marker 0 marks the start of the Freedom Road from the Liberators coming in via parachute or glider, the airborne troops, and marker 00 commemorates the start of the Freedom Road from the infantry troops landing from the sea. Well, that sounds very logical in a very French way. So thank you very much indeed for whoever contributed that. Well, we talked then about the 197 people that were our men that were killed or wounded. Also a ship, the USS Corrie, was sunk only a few miles from the monument that commemorates her. So we mustn't ignore the fact that many people did pay the ultimate sacrifice, including Caffey's men on the days that followed as well, getting rid of those tens of thousands of landmines. Well, it nearly brings us to the end. I'll be hosting a live webinar Wednesday this week, and we'll revisit Utah Beach, but cover all the places we've seen today, plus the Roosevelt Cafe, the secret bunker below it, and the museum. We'll go and have a look inside the museum on the webinar. Next Saturday, I'll be broadcasting live from the amazing artillery battery at Longues-sur-Mer, right between the British and American beaches. And you can see all of the details of my forthcoming tours on the Eventbrite website and on welovenormandy.com. Better still, if you click on subscribe, we'll keep you updated. You'll never miss one of these events, and you can benefit from lots of other great membership advantages. And you can help us with this project, so that would be very much appreciated. Well, thank you all for taking part today. If you've enjoyed the show, please tell all your friends and family and pets, and do mention it on social media. A review on TripAdvisor would be great if you do that. You can follow us also on Facebook and Instagram, and information about the future tours, as I say, is on the Eventbrite ticketing website. Now, if you are a subscriber, you can watch and download today's footage on the website, on the video archive page. And if, as I sincerely hope, you can visit Normandy soon, have a look at the website, some of the fabulous properties that we work with, and let me know if you're planning a trip, so I can put you in touch with a good guide or tour with you myself if I'm available. The email is patrick@welovenormandy.com. And remember, don't forget to subscribe. You can register for free, or you can subscribe for only €3 and get a 30-day free trial. So, the Zoom platoon is about to start in 5 minutes. The government of France has put the curfew back to 7 p.m, so that gives me a bit more time to get home for my glass of wine and supper. So yeah, the Zoom platoon in 5 minutes. Details are on the subscribers page. Have a look on the website. You click on members area and then subscribers page, and you'll see all the details of the Zoom platoon meeting. So I'll see you there shortly. Otherwise, it's au revoir from me, and I hope to see you soon in beautiful Normandy. Thank you and au revoir.